Hello everyone, this is Divesh Harpalani. Welcome back to this channel named Inside Angle and this series named Upper Edge. This video is for the study strategy for the subject of direct taxes, that is paper 7 of CA final. I secured 83 marks in the paper of direct taxes in the July 21 attempt, right? And this video is meant to probably give out my approach towards the preparation of this subject. I'll talk about lectures, whose lectures I took, what is the duration of those lectures, when did I take those lectures, what was the time that I allocated to the first, second, and third reading respectively, how I managed to do it within the last 1.5 days, the resources I used, and the approach towards MCQs that I adopted, and few tips in general as to which chapters might be given a few more weightage, and few other pro tips to handle this vast subject of DT, which probably is the biggest out of all 8. Obviously, closely followed by FR. So let's just get started. Starting with the lectures, well, I had my attempt scheduled in May 21. Accordingly, to us, the Finance Act 20 was applicable, and for every May attempt, the Finance Act of the previous year is applicable, right? So what happens is usually the latest lectures, that is the amended lectures, we get from the starting of July the previous year. So, for example, I got the lectures for my attempt. They started in July 2020 and went on till November 2020, somewhere in November, I mean October end or November, right? While if your attempt is in November, you already have those recorded lectures which were recorded for the May attempt because the Finance Act remains the same. So for those who have their attempt in May, I will strongly suggest you go for the DT lectures. You keep it towards the last. So try and aim to complete lectures of all other subjects before July the previous year. And somewhere between July to October, try targeting and completing the lectures of direct taxes, right? Obviously, you may take elective or any other subject side by side, but what is suggestible is to go for the lectures between July and November because that is when the latest lectures will be applicable. If you have your attempt in November, you alternatively can take your lectures for DT as the second last subject, and you may keep another subject as towards the last, or you may keep DT as the last as well. So that's so far as lectures are concerned. Around, I think lectures are around 200 to 50 hours, which should be easily manageable in anywhere between 2 to 3 months. Also, talking about my first reading within the study leaves, I would say I would have taken up to 15 days, and I think that's an ideal given the quantum of the subject. The second reading, I would suggest an ideal would be taking anywhere up to 7 days. The third reading or the last reading in the study leaves, I would say taking anywhere between 3 to 4 days is something that is suggestible and fine. Try to keep it to 3, but may extend up to 3.5 also. And obviously, the last day before exam is 1.5 days. But I had basically during the electives as well, during the 1.5 days for electives as well, I had devoted a few hours towards studying direct taxes, and that's probably something that most of us do, and that is also suggestible. I have talked about the last 1.5 days detailed preparation plan in one more video, which probably you'll see in the I button. You can refer to it for my way or my planning so far as preparation of DT is concerned in the last 1.5 days. Now, this was the time concern. So, like the lectures 2 to 3 months, somewhere between July to October for the attempt of May. First reading, I would say up to 15 days. Second reading, up to 7 days. Third reading, anywhere between 3 to 4. And fourth and last reading, that is 1.5 days. You may refer to the plan that I have posted as another video. Right now, straight away jumping to lectures. Basically, I took BB Sir's lectures. And so straight away jumping to the resources that I used, I basically primarily resorted to BB Sir's compact and compiler, which makes it relatively easy for us to manage the course within the last 1.5 days or even in the first reading as well. Now, I complemented these books with the study material. So what I used to do is once I used to cover these chapters from each chapter from the compact and the compiler, I used to go through that particular chapter from the study material just to see that I have not missed out on anything, right? So what we had done is we had divided the chapters amongst us friends, and we had basically prepared a list of all those illustrations or the study material test your knowledge questions which might have not been included in the compiler. So that's how I had a list of about 100 odd questions from the entire study material prepared, which may include very easy questions as well, which is why they were probably not included in the compiler. But there was an exhaustive list of 100 questions prepared by me during my first reading for those questions which were not included in the compact or compiler. And I referred to those questions separately. Obviously, I had cut out all the easy ones, and then out of the 100, I shortlisted 70 or 60 for the next reading, and so on, so on, so on. I used to keep cutting the number of questions down. Till the last day, probably I had some 30, 40 odd questions to be referred from the study material. So basically, in terms of the resources, like I said, I used compact compiler and complemented it with any extra questions that might have been there in the study material, but not in the compact compiler, just to ensure that my preparation is exhaustive and I don't miss out on a single question. And at the same time, so far as DT is concerned, it's probably very pertinent to go through at least last 2 attempts RTP MTP, and question that is the past exam papers, at least for the last two attempts. You may not go up till say May 18 so far as the subject of DT is concerned, because a lot of amendments would have come since then. But it is certainly suggestible to refer questions of, for example, PGBP, because such adjustments might still get repeated. So selectively, you may refer to the very old past papers. But otherwise, I think last 2 to 3 attempts, past papers, RTPs, MTPs should ideally suffice. But while referring to these sources, you should be mindful of the fact that there might have been amendments that would have taken place in between, right? So this is so far as the resources was concerned. And now coming to the MCQs, which again is I think the most important. What helped me score 83 marks in July 21 DT was probably the MCQs. I scored 29 out of 30 marks in MCQs, and I think that is the main reason why I scored 83, and that is the main reason why anyone can score as high, right? And that certainly pushes your total score up by margin. So I would say that's certainly one thing that you should be mindful of. In fact, DT MCQs are perceived to be the most difficult out of all 4 for a reason, because there are so many sections that actually come into picture, which makes it in fact very interesting as well. So I used to always enjoy solving DT MCQs, but at the same time I was very scared, because most of the times I used to find that my answer was wrong because of some other reason while practicing MCQs. So basically the approach that I would suggest for you, I will in fact make a separate video on this as well, which is to keep it short for now. I will say you should certainly extensively go through the ICI MCQ booklet that ICI has come up with, and you should solve the entire one in your first reading, and mark a few MCQs for the second reading as well. But during the first reading itself, make your own notes out of those MCQs. What are the mistakes that you've made, or probably the things that you would want to miss out? Either mark them in your study material itself, the book that you would have been referring. Either mark those points in your material itself, or separately make your handwritten notes as to whatever points have been mentioned in the MCQ notes. So this way, those handwritten notes will be useful to you in the last 1.5 days, and you don't have to go through the entire MCQ booklet in the last 1.5 days. And this, trust me, turns out to be very useful. So don't miss out on a single MCQ so far as ICI sources are concerned, because while the MCQs might not directly get repeated, though a couple of them did get repeated in our attempt, but may or may not get repeated always, but the logic might still get repeated. And in any case, it's very pertinent to go through these MCQs, because it helps you get cleared with your logic. That is, I would say, so far as the MCQs are concerned. Now, a few pro tips, I would say, basically, or rather, before coming to the pro tips, let me talk about a few important chapters, or rather, an approach towards a few chapters that generally people question me about, right? So I would say, first, talking about those chapters that people question me about is the last 3 chapters of international tax, basically in terms of the theory, the ones with theory, right? So basically, I would say it's very difficult to go through the entire theory that is given in the study material of these chapters, and it is a matter of fact, especially given the weightage that would be assigned to these chapters even in the exam as well. So my safe and sound strategy was to actually go through all the illustrations and test your knowledge questions so far as these chapters were concerned, so that I would hedge my risk. And in fact, this actually happened in my attempt as well, that probably out of a 6-marker theory question, probably 4 out of 6 marks was out of, so there were 3 sub questions of 2 marks each. 2 sub questions were actually coming from those test your knowledge or illustration questions that I had done, and there was just 1 2-marker that was probably from within the chapter, which was not included in the test your knowledge, etc. So this way, if you actually at least go through the illustrations, test your knowledge, and at least maybe the key points of the chapter, instead of going through the entire chapter, you'll be able to hedge your risk, and you'll be at least in a position to answer it to get at least some marks, if not the full marks out of that question. And trust me, theory does come to resort during the exam, because DT paper again might be lengthy, and that with theory will help you probably cope up with the time you would have taken extra in the practical sums or the questions, right? So I would say don't entirely skip these 3 chapters of theory. Instead, probably at least go through a few questions, maybe the ones that have been tested in past, or probably those that are included in compiler, or the ones that have been given in the study material. This way, you'll be able to hedge your risk a bit. That is something that I would like to suggest. So while these 3 chapters are concerned, so far the important chapters are concerned, I think it's well known which chapters are important and which are not. But I would say don't think of any chapter as not being important, because if going by the past trend, ICI is actually of late being asking questions from every remote corner of any subject. So it could be any say DT, they could ask it for the remotest possible chapter, so as to make the paper difficult, which though is not difficult, but because it's been asked from a remote corner, it seems to be difficult. So that's in fact one thing. So that way I would not suggest to skip any chapter, but I would say you may certainly give more importance to a few chapters, say for example, which are well known, that is PGBP, trust, say NRI, transfer pricing, DTAA, TDS, etc., which has a very high probability of being asked in the exam. Say PGBP, as a matter of fact, is being asked. So that way you may certainly give a little high weightage to these chapters. Now, in fact, coming to another most important point and how to study these chapters very smartly. So, for example, for the chapter of PGBP, there are a lot of sums. Say, for example, there is a question bank of 60 sums that you have, or 70 sums that you have, right? From all the ICI sources compiled into one, say it's 70 sums. Now, doing those 70 sums the day before exam is not possible, even though you know that there's one question of PGP certainly going to be asked as a compulsory question. But 70 questions the day before exam, you cannot afford to do, because you'll have to otherwise skip the other chapter. So what I had done was, out of 70 sums, I had marked just 3 or 4 sums for doing it the day before exam. Because if you notice, for the sums of PGBP, most of the adjustments get repeated. So every new sum will have just 1 or 2 new adjustments, and the remaining ones will have been repeated in the other sums as well. So what I had done was, I had made handwritten notes of all these unique adjustments from these 70 sums. I had kept just 3 or 4 extensive exhaustive sums, right, for me to refer the day before exam, and the remaining adjustments which are not included in those sums, I had compiled it in the handwritten notes of mine. In fact, I'll share the link of those notes in the description as well. You can go through those. I would say, in fact, you should certainly prepare your own notes, but as a reference point, you can refer to my notes as well. So that is something I will strongly suggest, not just for PGP, but for other chapters as well, so that the number of sums you refer to before the day of exam reduces. And going through those handwritten notes is actually very convenient and very fast, and that helps you to cover the course of TT within the last 1.5 days. That is what I had done. And last, for chapters like probably capital gain, which has a very less probability or possibility of being asked, so far as CA final is concerned, right? So the strategy that I would suggest for chapters like these is something that I had done. Everyone can take their own call, but what I had done was, probably I had covered these subjects using the revision videos. So revision videos, I used to watch them at 2x, and that used to help me cover the entire chapter quickly. Instead of me going through the entire chapter, which would have probably taken, say, 2 hours, I would cover it in the revision video within, say, half an hour, running the video at a 2x speed. So that is something that I had done. So this is what I shared with respect to MCQs. Number 1, preparing your own notes, focusing on them. Second, I shared with you with respect to the important chapters like PGP, trust, etc. Again, making your own notes. For less important chapters, what I had done was referring to revision videos. And for the theory chapters, I told you what I had done was referring to the back exercise as well as the illustrations, etc. So I think this is what I would like to put out. Again, summarizing the entire video in a minute. Basically, so far as time is concerned, first reading 15 days, second reading up to 7 days, third reading anywhere between 3 to 4 days, and the last 1.5 days reading, I've made a separate video as well, but also to study part of DT with the elective as well. Right. And resources I mentioned, I used BB compact compiler and complemented it with the study material, other questions that might have not been covered in the compact and the compiler. And for the MCQs, referred to all ICI sources, basically the MCQ booklet plus the RTP, MTP, MCQs, etc. Prepared my own notes for the MCQs to refer the day before exam. For important chapters like PGP, again, prepared my own notes for the unique adjustments. For the last 3 chapters of theory of international tax, I basically referred to just the ICI illustrations and the test your knowledge questions. And for unimportant chapters, or let us say less important instead of unimportant, less important chapters like capital gain, covered them through revision videos. That is pretty much I did. And yes, that helped me score 83 marks in the paper of direct taxes in July 21. In fact, one last point I would like to say is you may not go writing, say, 5-6 mocks. That is certainly upon you. But do make sure that you write at least 1 DT mock, because I will tell you this will help you time your paper. Otherwise, if you directly experiment in the exam, you may end up probably taking 45-50 minutes only for the PGP question, which is way more than what proportionately the time that is proportionate to the marks. So do ensure you write at least 1 paper, so that it will help you plan the way you should go about the paper during the exam, and it will help you time. That is the last suggestion that I would like to give. If you have any questions so far as DT is concerned, please do mention it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. Do stay tuned for other subjects as well, and many more videos. In fact, I'm planning to come up with the certified copy analysis of my DT July 21 paper where I scored 83 marks. Do stay tuned and subscribe to this channel for more such videos. We'll be happy to guide you all for all the questions that you might have. Thanks a lot for watching. Do share, do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.